You think you're safe driving alone at night, or when you pull into a quiet rest stop in the woods. Maybe you assume the worst that could happen is losing cell signal, or falling asleep behind the wheel. But sometimes the darkness doesn't just hold silence, it hides eyes watching you. In today's video, you'll hear 3 true stories from long-haul drivers who came face to face with things most people refuse to believe are real. A silent stalker in the shadows, strangers hiding inside your own vehicle, and a trap waiting in the dark. Each story begins the same way, with someone who thought they were just stopping to rest. Story 1. The Man in the Dark. I used to think I was used to driving through the night. Endless highways, isolated roads, and that creeping fatigue that feels like poison. But no night was ever like that night, the one I almost didn't come back from. It was 2017. I was hauling freight from Bakersfield to Phoenix. The route cuts through the Mojave Desert, empty, silent, unsettling in ways you can't quite explain. It was past midnight. My truck's headlights barely pierced the thin desert mist. Sand skimmed across the road in waves, and a soft country song played low on the radio. Until I saw it. A red car. Parked dead center in the middle of the road. The driver's side door was wide open. The interior lights flickered erratically like a short circuit. No one inside. No movement. I pulled up about 30 feet away, flipped on my brights, and just stared. My heart started pounding. Not from fear, but from that unmistakable feeling. Something wasn't right. I stepped out with my flashlight in hand. No skid marks. No crash. The keys were still in the ignition, but the engine was off. And stranger still, there was nothing inside. No phone. No wallet. Just a pair of flip-flops sitting neatly under the open door, like someone stepped out and vanished. I walked around to the back, reached for the trunk handle, but it was locked. That's when I noticed it. A thick rope looped and tied tight from the inside of the back seat, holding the trunk shut. I opened the rear door, reached in, and gently pulled the cord. The trunk cracked open. Inside, 3 large black trash bags, still and heavy like bodies. One of them was leaking. I reached out, barely touched the first bag. Bang! A gunshot shattered the silence. It echoed for miles across the desert. I spun around. A man stood next to my truck, short, matted red hair, wearing filthy denim overalls. On his shoulder, a rusted hunting rifle. In his other hand, a shovel. He didn't say a word. He just stared. His eyes were empty. I stepped back, then ran, sprinted to my truck, jumped in, slammed the door, and locked everything. When I looked back, he was still standing there, smiling. I floored it, pedal to the metal. Every passing streetlight felt like a countdown. Then I saw it in my rearview mirror. The red car, following me. No headlights, no sound, just gliding through the dark. He tried to pass me, swerving to force me off the road. I flashed my high beams, hoping someone would see anyone. And then, like a miracle, red and blue lights lit up the distance. The red car vanished into the desert. When I told the cops, they said there were no reports of a chase. They told me I was probably exhausted. Imagination. But how do you imagine something that real? A few nights later, I got a call. 3:00 a.m. No caller ID. A deep voice, just one sentence. You shouldn't have opened the trunk. Then the line went dead. Since that night, I never stop on the side of the road. And I never open anyone's trunk, unless I know exactly what's waiting inside. Story 2. The Shadow Behind the Curtain. I'm a freelance delivery driver. I take overnight cross-state gigs all the time. Sometimes it's the silence of the road that keeps me more awake than any can of coffee ever could. But that night, what kept me awake wasn't caffeine. It was a sound. A small, quiet sound, coming from right behind me. I had just dropped off a shipment in southern Oregon and was heading home. It was around 1 a.m., and I needed something to fight off the sleep and energy drink, some light somewhere that didn't feel too creepy. I pulled into a tiny roadside rest stop, the kind barely anyone uses. A flickering neon sign buzzed above the entrance. The convenience store looked closed, but a faint light still glowed inside. I walked in. The bell over the door gave a soft ding, but no one came to the counter. The store was completely silent. All the coolers were empty, except one at the very back. It was still humming, still lit, but not a single bottle inside. I turned to leave, and that's when I heard it. A soft, metallic clink like someone stepping on a soda can. I whipped around. Nothing. The plastic curtain covering the back entrance swayed slightly, as if stirred by a breeze. I walked faster. Something cold crept up my back, that distinct feeling of being watched. I got into my van, locked the doors, and started the engine. That's when I saw it. The small fabric curtain that separates the driver's cab from the rear compartment moved. Just a little. But it hadn't been moving when I got in. I kept my hands on the wheel, heart pounding, and in the rearview mirror, I thought I saw a faint shadow pass across the gap in the curtain. I didn't wait. I floored it. Radio on, anything to distract me, but in between the music, I heard something. Breathing. Not mine. I swerved off the highway and pulled into the nearest patrol station, parked right in front. I told the night officer I thought someone might be in my van. He called for backup. When they opened the rear, they found 3 people. 3 homeless men, faces covered, curled up under a large tarp. One of them had 2 folding knives. They didn't say a word, just looked at me, like I'd done something wrong. The officer asked if I'd opened the back during my stop. I said no. They told me someone probably slipped in while I was inside the store. I felt sick. One of them had been sitting right behind that curtain, not 2 feet away, listening. To every breath I took, every word I mumbled to keep myself awake. I don't know what they wanted, but I know one thing. If I hadn't stopped at that patrol station, I might never have made it home. Since that night, I never unlock my doors without checking the back first, and I never stop anywhere with a flickering light. Story 3. The Voices in the Forest. My name is Kevin. I've been a long-haul trucker for nearly 15 years. My routes change all the time, but there's one rule I've always followed: never stop in the forest at night. Unless there's absolutely no other choice. This happened on a spring night as I was driving from North Dakota to Montana. It was pitch black, and I'd been awake for almost 20 hours. To stay alert, I used something my friend Tristan had recommended: smelling salts. They worked. They woke me up instantly, but they also made my heart pound like a war drum. I was flying down a remote forest stretch of highway when I noticed something strange. A purple dress, lying right in the middle of the road. I blinked hard, trying to convince myself it was just my eyes playing tricks. But it was real. Clearly real. A few hundred feet later, a pair of small red shoes, then a child's t-shirt, then women's clothing, like someone had quietly laid out a fabric trail leading into the woods. I slowed down, heart thudding. Somewhere between fear and the urge to help, I pulled over. Hazards on, engine idling. I stepped out. The night air was freezing. My headlights swept across the tree trunks, casting long shadows that flickered between the leaves. I walked toward the scattered children's clothes, crouched down. They were real. Too many to be a coincidence. I stared into the woods, silent, still. Only the faint whisper of wind. Then crunch, leaves, footsteps. I spun around. No one. Another crunch from the opposite side. That's when I realized I wasn't alone. I was being surrounded, or worse, lured. I turned to bolt back to the truck, and that's when I heard it. A child's scream. Shrill, panicked, desperate. I froze. My heart clenched inside my chest. That wasn't the sound of a kid playing. It was a cry for help. Logic and instinct wrestled in my mind. No one ignores the cry of a child. But something deep in me, a raw, primal instinct, screamed, "This is wrong." I jumped back into the cab, fired up the engine, and aimed the headlights toward the woods, right where the scream came from. For just a second, the beams caught a group of people, 3, maybe 4, crouched low behind the trees. One of them was holding a Bluetooth speaker. They were using fake child screams to lure people out of their vehicles. My stomach turned. I threw the truck into reverse, and that's when I heard it clang. Something hit the side of my trailer. I whipped around just in time to see a figure sprinting from the other side of the road. He threw something shattered the passenger side glass. Then he yelled in a low, guttural voice, not quite English, not quite anything. I didn't wait. I floored it. I drove like a madman for over an hour, never looking back. By the time I reached the delivery site, I collapsed over the steering wheel. Slept for 10 straight hours in the cab. When I woke up, I called the local police. They promised to look into that section of forest, but I never heard back. No one knows who they were. No one knows what their plan was if I had stepped into the trees. But I know this. If I had followed that scream, I probably wouldn't be here to tell you this story. We always think danger is somewhere far away. But sometimes it's just behind a curtain inside a trunk, or 10 steps into the dark woods. What would you do in those moments? Walk away or step closer? Let me know in the comments. I want to know what you would choose. And if you enjoy true scary stories like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. I'll see you again. Next time, the night falls.